Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Black Agenda Podcast Live. As always, I'm your co-host, Devin Dito. Have my co-host here with me, Adrian Guest, and we are back again and excited to bring you some more news from this past week, which is a little bit different because of Thanksgiving and everything. But we were back here at 7:30 p.m. to bring you the news from the week. This is weekly roundup number 16. So we've been doing this for a little while now, and we are live on Facebook, YouTube, possibly Twitter at some point, but we're back here to bring you the news and everything. So it's been an interesting week, a weird week, because we were kind of out of the loop as far as news is concerned. But there were some things that we wanted to talk about, that happened this week that's not election related, and it's not related to Donald Trump. So you'll be happy to hear we will not be talking about, at least not talking about Donald Trump a lot this time. So let's get into the show here. And the first thing we kind of wanted to tackle here quickly, because our podcast is called The Black Agenda, so we thought it was necessary for us to talk about what the former President Obama, said about what he did for the black community while he was president. And so this happened during an interview on The Breakfast Club this week with Charlamagne the God, DJ Envy, and forgot the third co-host's name. I'm sorry. I know her name too. I watch her shows. But he was on their show this week. Angela Yee. There it is. Angela Yee. So DJ Envy, Charlamagne the God, Angela Yee, they are the hosts of The Breakfast Club, and they had former President Obama on, and they asked him pretty straightforward about the criticism that he's received about what he has or has not done for the black community. And Adrian, he kind of gave, I kind of generic answer. As far as, what did you do for the black community? Because during the video, DJ Envy asked him how did he feel about the criticism that he hadn't done anything for black America while he was president. And I guess what Obama really was trying to say, and I'll read you here, quote, this is what he said in response to the criticism that he's gotten when people say you haven't done a lot for black America. President Obama said, quote, I understand it because when I was elected, there was so much excitement and hope. And I also think, that we generally, we view the presidency as almost like a monarchy in the sense that once the president's there, he can just do whatever he wants to get done. And if he's not doing it, it must be because he didn't want to do it. And so, Adrian, that's an interesting perspective because I think you can probably go back to 2008, 2009, and the sense was that Obama was kind of almost superhero-like. We expected him to go in and wipe it clean and rebuild it and fix all of the problems that the Bush administration and Clinton and everybody else who came before had, all the problems that they had caused and all the plight of black America would go away. And I think we had a false sense that he was going to be able to just magically do it all. Because we believed, because we said, yes, we can. And so, Adrian, I think now we're looking back, hindsight, and I feel like maybe some of this criticism isn't necessarily fair. Some of it is, some of it isn't. So what do you think about, what he said and our expectations for the first black president and what he did?
Devin, I think when you think about it, everyone maybe is comparing him to Donald Trump, which is kind of wild. I don't know why everyone's trying to compare him to that, other than the fact that Donald Trump has said that he's done the most for blacks than anybody since Lincoln. So I don't know if that's why that's why people are trying to ask him that question. But I mean, when I think about it, President Obama, he did a lot. You think about the Affordable Care Act. That's the cornerstone of his presidency, and that really worked to expand healthcare for a lot of our people. Because when I talk to a lot of people in the Delta, Mississippi, that's one of the first things I'm notified is that hospitals close or they can't get their prescriptions because they're too expensive or something of that nature. So by him doing the Affordable Care Act and making that a pillar of his platform, that automatically helped a lot of black people. And then whenever you think about the economic success that Donald Trump has talked about unemployment, about wage growth, all of that is, are trends that happened during the Obama administration. Nothing that happens in the economy is something that you just flip a switch and the next day it happens. These are trends that take years and years to develop. So I think that it just goes to show what President Obama was talking about. We view the presidency like a monarchy, and we don't really fully understand the mechanism of how government works. So that way, when we see or don't see something, we immediately begin to think, "Oh, the president isn't doing his job." And I mean that could go both ways, because again, same thing applies to Trump. When we see him doing something or not doing something, we have to still understand the mechanism of government and understand the what a president can and cannot do, because again, it's not a monarchy. We live in a democracy for a reason. But I think it just goes to the fact that people, Devin, thought that President Obama, as the first African American president, he needed to do a lot. I guess people just expected that everything that come across his desk was supposed to be something that benefited Black Americans more so than any other sector of the population. And you have to remember that when you're the president, you're over everybody. I mean, you're not just the Black president or the Hispanic president or the white president. I mean, you're the president over all Americans. Yeah. So maybe it's fair, maybe it's not fair for us to to question that, Devin. But I think we just got to look at it more critically as far as some of the policies that he championed and how it's helping us now.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that makes him different in when you compare him to Donald Trump and what they've done for the Black community. Donald Trump is definitely more vocal about it, even though when you look at it, he probably actually did less. Even though he was there for 4 years, he did have the First Step Act, and he did sign legislation to make HBCU funding, permanent. And so those are a couple things that Trump did. But when you go back and you look at the Obama administration, one of the things that Obama was pointing out, that he did do was, he talked about reducing the federal prison population and sentencing reform. And like you already named the Affordable Care Act. And he said that, Black income rose under him. Black poverty went down fastest under him. And importantly, too, a real stark difference between Donald Trump and the Obama administration is that the Obama administration added a civil rights division within the Department of Justice. That civil rights division under Donald Trump is essentially non-existent. It's there, but it's not doing anything. They don't investigate police departments like they used to under the Obama administration, and using things like a consent decree to try to get police departments to change the way that they act and behave and the way that they use force. The Trump administration has essentially stopped doing that altogether. So that is one thing you could say. While Donald Trump goes around and says he's done the most for Black people protest all the time about police brutality in the way that police, focus on our neighborhoods when it comes to crime deterrent and just the overall treatment that Black people get at the hands of the police. The Trump administration has said that they really and truly either they don't care or they don't think it's an issue, so they step back and they have called off the Justice Department from really doing anything to fix that problem. And so I think if Obama had been able to say the words, "I did these things for Black people," this is a different conversation. But you're the first Black president. And if he had gone to the White House and said half of what Trump has said about what he's done for Black people, there would have been riots by white people who were scared that this Black man in office was going to try to supersede them. It was going to change their country to help out people who don't look like them. And I think that's a very key point, is that Obama did not get the leeway with his speech and the things that he says like Trump has said. Like Trump, he's lying about a lot of the stuff he's saying, but he goes around and he touts it all the time. So it feels like, oh my God, he's done so much for Black people. Look at him. He's talking about it all the time. And we look at Obama through that same lens and say, well, why didn't he talk about it? Why didn't he just say explicitly, I'm doing this for Black people? And the reason is because he couldn't. I mean, like the man, said that if he had a son, his son would have been like Trayvon Martin, a Black boy, and people lost their minds. That was all he was saying. Was that if I had a son, he would have been looking like Trayvon Martin. He was just trying to be empathetic and say that he understands the tragedy of what happened. And a lot of white people lost their minds. So you really think he's going to be able to say, I did all these things for black people while he's in office? No, he can't say that. He couldn't. Things have changed so much between 2008 and 2020 as far as what we expect our presidents to say about what they're doing for certain groups. Trump is very in your face, and maybe going forward, a Joe Biden or Kamala Harris can say, I'm doing these things only for black people. So I think in some ways, the criticism against former President Obama is a little bit unfair. I think at least a little bit there.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Devin. And viewers, feel free to let us know your thoughts
please.
on how we're comparing, President Obama to President Donald Trump, and if you think some of these criticisms he's taken is fair. We'd love to kind of hear your thoughts, so feel free to let us know. Now, on to, we looked a little bit, back talking about former President Obama. Now we're going to look a little bit forward talking about President-elect Biden. The GSA, Devin, they finally, Emily Murphy, she finally gave the authorization to go ahead and get the
3 weeks later.
So even though in the letter, she sent a statement, and it almost, to me, I don't know her motives, but to me, it almost played into the charade that the GOP is kind of going on, because she was just like, the GSA administrator does not certify the winner of the presidential election. The actual winner is determined by the electoral process. And, Devin, we've already seen the electoral processes.
It's played out.
There's not anything left to be certified other than states just go ahead and do it, which this week, we do know more and more states did certify their votes, even though the Trump team is still filing more lawsuits. And then, she said that we're going to begin to release important transition data, funding. So it's good to see that the Biden team is going to actually begin transitioning. I mean, they actually now have a governmental website. Their officials can start security clearances. They'll get that funding. And then most importantly, Devin, Biden now has access to a lot of federal agencies and data like COVID statistics and vaccine distribution. It's almost appalling, Devin, that we had such a holdup in this transition because we're going through such a trying time for our nation. We don't need the person who's going to be taking the reins for our country to not know what's going on right now. I mean, we need, President-elect Biden to know the ins and outs of everything that's in our federal government. So it's good to see that he's going to be getting those sorts of resources, and he's going to be begin to receive the presidential daily briefings, Devin. Those are really, really important. The Office of Director of National Intelligence confirmed that Biden will begin to receive those. Again, the Trump administration didn't want to have that happening. I don't know if some of the senators that said they were going to step in, maybe they actually stepped in and did something. I'm not sure, but we had a host of Republican senators say that Joe Biden should be getting these PDBs. So it's good to see that, because, viewers, if you don't know, those PDBs, those are really important. Most president-elects get them early on in the transition process, just because it lets our adversaries as well as our allies know that the United States is still stable and ready, even during a transitional process. So it's good to see that the United States is trying to go back to normal, Devin.
It's so sad when the bar is just normal. Like, that's all we want to get back to. It's normal. Yes, but yeah, it's great to see that the transition is finally starting. It's an acknowledgement that Joe Biden is what they call the apparent winner of the election. The Electoral College still has the vote to certify it, but from everything we're looking at, Joe Biden is going to be the president come January 2021. And so it's good that we're getting this process ongoing. And so it gets rid of some gray area as far as what's going to happen in the next few months. Everybody was like, well, is Trump going to leave? He had a little press conference. He said if Joe Biden is determined the winner by the Electoral College, he will exit the White House come January 20th. And so it looks like we will have a peaceful transfer of power. There won't be Secret Service or CIA having to move Donald Trump out of the White House. Although some of us are hoping to see that. Just to see the spectacle. But yes, it's good to see it. And I think what happened too is that Joe Biden tried to apply some pressure to the Trump administration by starting to name his cabinet members and try to make it appear like, okay, the transition is moving, we're moving ahead. And so he named, Joe Biden did this week, named several key cabinet members this week. And so we'll give you a few of them you may know, some of you may not know, but most of them are people who are going to be working within the Biden administration. So to start off, a big one here is Secretary of State is going to be Antony Blinken, who previously served as Deputy Secretary of State under the Obama administration. And then for National Security Advisor, again, you may not know these folks, but Jake Sullivan is going to be National Security Advisor. He worked for a number of people, from Justice Breyer to Hillary Clinton, so he's experienced. And then we have Special Presidential Envoy for Climate. You will know this name, former Secretary of State John Kerry, also former presidential candidate back in 2004. John Kerry is going to be the Special Presidential Envoy for Climate. And then a big one here, the Secretary of Treasury, is going to be Janet Yellen. And so she's the former chair of the Federal Reserve. And then I think Janet Yellen may be the first woman to be Secretary of Treasury. I have to double check that. And then a big one for folks who were looking for some diversity within Joe Biden's cabinet. He did name Linda Thomas Greenfield as UN ambassador, and she is a former U.S. ambassador to Liberia. She's a black woman. And so that some people were wondering if we were going to see this diversity that Joe Biden was talking about. There is one. He's got one black woman who's going to serve as UN ambassador. And then Director of National Intelligence is Avril Haines, who is a former Deputy Director of the CIA and would also be the first woman to serve as the Director of National Intelligence. And then two more. Secretary of Homeland Security is going to be Alejandro Mayorkas. I hope I said that right. Mr. Mayorkas used to be the former Homeland Security Secretary. He would be the first immigrant and the first Latino to hold this position of Secretary of Homeland Security. He's done a lot of firsts here. A lot of firsts, first woman, first Latino. So you've seen the diversity of what Joe Biden was promising. And then the last one here is Chief of Staff is going to be a longtime advisor to Joe Biden, Mr. Ron Klain. Ron Klain used to be the Chief of Staff to Vice President Gore. And, of course, like I say, he was Chief of Staff to Vice President Joe Biden during the Obama administration. So they have a long relationship there. So, yeah, Adrian, so we did get some diversity. You're seeing women, you're seeing the first Latino to hold a position as Secretary of Homeland Security. And then you're also seeing Linda Thomas Greenfield, who's going to be UN ambassador. But there were some who would expect to see more diversity. And that would be Representative Jim Clyburn from South Carolina, who spoke to The Hill and said that, he's glad to see that the black folks are being considered for these positions, but he would like to see more. He would like to see more black folks put into high-ranking cabinet positions, And so, because Biden, you could say it, Age. I mean, he really kind of owes the black community in a lot of ways. Jim Clyburn essentially handed him South Carolina. He literally gave him the state and pretty much set him on the path for the nomination. So they do expect to see something in return for that. So, I guess it's a start, Adrian. I wonder if we got our hopes up too high, hopefully, for a Joe Biden presidency. We've only got, 6 maybe positions he's decided. So, we could get more African-American folks in this cabinet. But early on, we're only looking at Linda Thomas Greenfield for UN ambassador. So hopefully we get a few more in there.
Yeah, Devin, I think that you could probably say we had high hopes. And I guess it kind of goes back to the thing that, we got to appeal to everybody. There's got to be some black people. It's got to be Hispanic, Asian. It's got to be women, men, gay, straight, trans. There's got to be a little bit of diversity there. So, and it's early. It's early in the process. So, we may be able to see more of those key level positions that look like you and I. And again, viewers, we'd love to hear your comments and your reactions to the current picks that President-elect Biden has named so far. And maybe some people that you'd like to kind of see. So we'd love to know your thoughts on that. Before we take our first little break here, We wanted to talk a little bit about Biden's potential first 100 days because he's kind of indicated a few things that he's like to see done here. One of the things, immigration, Devin. That's
Yeah.
definitely a key thing because I mean that was really big in helping him secure a lot of the Latino vote. But looks like he spoke with Lester Holt, and he's wanting to do a bill that's going to grant citizenship to 11 million illegal immigrants in the country, kind of give them a pathway to get there, and that's probably going to not pass just because Republicans aren't really in favor for usually those sorts of bills. And a lot of Americans may not even like that sort of idea. But again, we're all here together. We need to figure out how to get people who are here illegal to become legal so they can start being, contributing members of society. Of course, looks like he's also wanting to pay some homage to the LGBTQ community by passing the Equality Act, which about 21 states right now already have a lot of regulation that promises equal protections in housing and public accommodations to LGBTQ communities. But we don't really have a federal push to do that. So, Devin, it's good to see that he's trying to do some things like that and just trying to, again, appeal to a variety of people to make sure that he's, kind of checking off all of his boxes.
Yeah, I mean it's a broad coalition that he has to make happy, and so starting with immigration is like you say, that's going to be a tough hill to climb to try to get that through the Senate, and then there were a couple other things that Joe Biden was looking at, for his first 100 days. There has been a lot of talk about the possibility of student loan reform and student debt relief. Some people have called for Joe Biden to just use executive action and forgive a certain amount of public student loans. I don't think he's going to go that far. So far, Joe Biden has only committed to tackling student loan forgiveness by providing $10,000 of student debt relief for every year of service. And that could be service to teaching at a school, a nonprofit, some kind of public sector work where you would qualify under this plan for $10,000 of debt to be forgiven every year up to 5 years. So for me, I have well over $50,000 in loans. So if I did that, if I worked 5 years in the public sector, it's essentially gone. And so that's huge for a lot of people. It's not the out of pens writing $50,000 of your loans are going to be gone. That's what some people have asked for, like Senator Chuck Schumer and Elizabeth Warren. They would want to see a larger, $50,000 per student forgiveness. I don't know if Joe Biden is going to be that nice and try to go for it, but we shall see. I think he's going to try to toe the line of not being this radical Democratic, what they call a Democratic socialist. But also he can't be too conservative because there were a lot of liberal folks who did vote for him and put him in office. And so he's going to have to walk a tightrope. And then the last thing, of course, is we all want more coronavirus stimulus. That's really a bipartisan agreement on that. We just cannot get Congress to come to an agreement on how to do it. And so they, of course, this is a poll. Most Americans say that they want Biden to focus on trying to pass a coronavirus stimulus bill. Adrian, it's not likely. Like you say with the immigration bill, it's just not likely to happen. Right now, they are at a stalemate between Nancy Pelosi and Steve Mnuchin and Mitch McConnell in the Senate. There's really no agreement on what they're going to do. I mean, the problem is you have some Republican senators who say we don't want to do anything else. And then you have Democratic senators or representatives saying we need to do all of this, whether it's forgiveness, rent forbearance, all that kind of stuff. There's no middle ground so far. So it's not likely we're going to see any kind of stimulus coming anytime soon. Unless, of course, the Democrats win those 2 seats in Georgia. We could be having a different conversation because they would then have control of the Senate. So that could play out interestingly. So that's going to do it for our first segment there. So before we go, we did want to give you a little nugget here, just to kind of give you a little bit of information as we go through the show. And this is what we call it This Day in History. And so on this day, this day, November 28th, it was the opening of the Tehran Conference, which was a meeting where Allied governmental heads, FDR, Winston Churchill, and Joseph Stalin all discussed what they called a second front in Western Europe during World War II. And so this is, kind of a show of what can happen when the world truly does come together to fight a threat, which at that time was Nazi Germany. And so just a little nugget there as we're going through this pandemic here of how we really do cooperation and is number one when trying to fight a threat such as a pandemic. And so we have to just keep that in mind. So take that nugget with you to the break. We'll come right back. And when we do come back, we're going to have one of our friends, frat brother. You could call him sports reporter, our own after Adam Schefter. But his name is Thad Fairley. He's going to be joining the show right after the break with some news about the sports world and coronavirus. So stick with us. And we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back. So like I said before the break, we were welcoming our very first, I guess you could say very first live podcast guest. Our friend, our frat brother, our own Adam Schefter, Wojnarowski. I think I said his name wrong, but our insider, the one and only Thad Fairley. Right. So welcome Thad Fairley, our friend Thad, to the show. That's going to be our sports guy. He's our insider. And so we wanted to talk about COVID, but also talk about what's happening in college football and the NFL with a lot of games being canceled this week. And so before we get into that, we did want to talk about just kind of where we are with coronavirus at this moment in time. And so as it stands right now, the country is at over 13 million cases of COVID-19 with over 260,000 deaths. And right now, the U.S. is averaging a little bit over 160,000 new cases. I think we had yesterday somewhere around 194,000. So we're inching up to that 200,000 new cases per day threshold. And then we're averaging about 1,400 deaths per day. But the biggest thing that's really has shot up and really surged during the past month is hospitalizations. We're looking at just today over 90,000 people are currently in the hospital due to COVID-19. And so, both for Adrian and Thad, we've seen this virus really take off this month.
Yeah.
And so, before we get into our sports news, just kind of talk about, where we are with coronavirus. How are you handling this new surge in COVID-19 cases? And kind of tell me, how are you thinking about this? Adrian, if you want to start it, you can.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think going into 2021, it's going to potentially get worse. And the only reason why I say that is because it's holiday season. I don't know who did their socially distanced Thanksgiving dinners, but we definitely tried to encourage that. And I think the CDC tried to as well. But Christmas is even a bigger holiday time than Thanksgiving. And I'm pretty sure you're not going to see a lot of people socially distancing during Christmas and presents opening and things like that. So I think it's definitely going to balloon. So I'm only hoping that the cavalry, which is going to be these vaccines, I just hope that they get here a little bit sooner.
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me, guys.
Of course.
And so I'm glad you guys brought me on. I'm here to talk about everyone's favorite topic, COVID.
COVID.
So, it's definitely something that's taken a lot of time to get used to. Like Adrian mentioned, and Devin, you mentioned before, just gatherings and, what I'm saying, just the holidays especially. We have Christmas coming up and most recently Thanksgiving. A lot of people spent their Thanksgiving virtually, just not being able to go. Some people did, they still, I guess you say, took that risk and, gathered, even though, a lot of people, argued against that. But people just wanted to spend time with their family because you got to think about it. Some people haven't probably seen their family since the pandemic, and this is probably the first time that they were able to get together. So they definitely didn't want to pass that up. And again, it's just something to get used to as far as people don't want to wear their mask. That's something to get used to. Although it's fairly simple, it's something to get used to. Certain people, but you're just trying to kind of stay out the way and stay healthy, and even just watching what you touch as far as utensils and things like that, and even whoever you touch, you don't even want to hug people right now. So
it's weird.
It is. I mean, I was just gonna say. I mean, I can remember one of my coworkers back home. She was telling me that she was in the grocery store. She was eating something, and she was literally choking. She was choking so much that she was sweating. She couldn't breathe, and I mean, she was like beating her own chest. But no one would get near her because everybody thought
she had it.
Yeah, I mean, it was so bad to the point that she had to just like lean over on her buggy and give herself the Heimlich maneuver because nobody else would come near her.
As I mentioned it before we got on earlier, but this is one of my friend's birthdays today, and I was just making a joke with him like, "Hey, happy birthday, man! Don't let anybody blow out your candles." And he was like, "Blowing out candles in a pandemic?" I was like, "Hey, listen, that's not a way." Hey, whoa, brother, listen, you're doing a smart thing and not blowing out your candles. I didn't. Either, but so it's everybody in panic mode a little bit. So.
It has. I mean, it's really crazy how quickly we've adapted to it. I went to an interview and I didn't know if I should elbow them or shake the hands or just don't do anything. Like one person shook my hand and the other lady, she elbowed. It's just I didn't know what to do. It's so weird. Right. But
and especially for the people who have had it, I know.
Yes.
My dad recently had it. He was talking with one of my brother's godparents, and she was saying she was one of the ones that took extra precautions. She had on 2 masks.
Wow.
So she had on
extra
2 masks, and the big guy was like, thank the Lord, I have recovered from it. She's like, oh really? And she started stepping back. So a lot of people who have had it, they kind of scared other people. They're like, oh man. I mean, I know you've had it, but it still might be contagious.
I mean, it's just one of those things that just goes into the fact that this is newer and there's not a lot of information on it. and there's been so much misinformation around COVID that you almost don't even know what to believe.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I definitely think it's crazy, and it's I think it was one of the things that everybody was kind of getting a little bit of peace because we were starting to get into sports. I mean, things were starting to kind of get down.
Right.
No matter who you are, every American likes sports to some degree.
Exactly.
And we were trying to get to a little bit of normalcy, but COVID said no. I'm gonna attack the sports industry just like I did.
Exactly. And like I said, sports is sports is definitely a good way for people to get away from the COVID, and everything, and just kind of focus on watching your favorite players and teams play football. Before I read the list, I just looked back at this week, and thinking back on it, maybe later on when all this is over, this may be one of the weeks where you might actually sit there and be like, probably shouldn't play sports this year.
This ain't the week to play right now.
Playing football 2020 COVID probably was a bad idea, but hey, we'll go with it. So there's a couple of games that were canceled. You had Ohio State versus Illinois. Their head coach, Ryan Day, tested positive for COVID-19. Florida State at Virginia was canceled. Miami at Wake Forest was canceled. Louisiana Tech at Florida International was canceled. Tulane at Houston was canceled. Minnesota at Wisconsin was canceled. Utah at Arizona State was canceled. Florida Atlantic at Middle Tennessee was canceled. USC at Colorado was canceled. USC Trojans at Colorado. Cincinnati at Temple. Oklahoma at West Virginia. San Jose State at Boise State. Colorado State versus at Air Force. Yeah, so that's a slew of games, guys, that a lot of people looking forward to. That one person that's probably not, because everyone has cell phones now, but there's probably that one person that's not informed, like wondering why the game isn't on. One person out there doesn't have a phone or nothing. Just like, man, I really was looking forward to seeing Louisiana Tech versus Florida International. Coaches that tested positive, of course, said Ryan Day, the Ohio State coach, and everybody's favorite coach, probably one of the most popular coaches, Nick Saban, the Alabama Crimson Tide head coach. I know a lot of people, because this is his second time.
Yeah. They said the first one was a false positive, right?
False positive. Okay. They say beat in 3 days. So.
Well, he's actually showing symptoms.
All
right.
Yeah, so those is a couple coaches. And then perhaps the biggest game that was supposed to have happened Thursday got canceled. And the only one that was really pushed back in the NFL is the Baltimore Ravens at the Pittsburgh Steelers. And kind of have a lot of stuff to say about this game.
Yeah, see, this is perfect. This is perfect. You're a Steelers fan.
It was tough. I mean, and it's like we blame the Ravens because theirs was like they weren't, following protocols. And, you had a coach that wasn't disciplining, taking disciplinary actions against the players. And a slew of players ended up, catching COVID, including Lamar Jackson, their premier quarterback and one of the best players in the league right now, quarterbacks. And it was a tough one. And so Steelers fans were like, oh, Ravens fans need to get their stuff together.
Steelers got problems too.
Hey, point the blame at everybody. Now they got to point the blame at themselves. Man. Steelers players started catching COVID. Our running back, James Conner, he caught it. So more likely the game was supposed to be on Thanksgiving on Thursday on NBC, and then it got pushed back to Sunday. Then it got pushed back to Tuesday, and let's hope it doesn't get pushed back again. So
at that point, you might as well cancel it.
Yeah, pretty much. A couple of other notable things left. Saints left tackle Taron Armstead was COVID, and again, as we mentioned, we didn't put an exact number, but apparently at least 18 Ravens players have been put on the COVID reserve list.
Wow.
And this one,
White House.
exactly. And this one that is a really crazy one is all of the Broncos quarterbacks are unable to play because they were deemed at high risk after exposure to someone who had COVID. So Broncos might be running the Wildcat.
Yes, you heard that right. The Broncos will not have a quarterback tomorrow.
And those who, like I said, been a Steelers fan, that one was kind of tough. Hopefully they play Tuesday. Now, Devin and I, we have another friend, Marlon. We always talk about football before it gets started. And Devin was high on Oakland, right? And, used to be Oakland. The Las Vegas Raiders, so they're doing pretty well right now. Arlen was high on the Arizona Cardinals, who are doing pretty well right now.
Mm-hmm.
Dad was high on the Denver Broncos, and I lost that battle. Denver Broncos have been too good this year. Now they probably won't have a quarterback. John Elway got strapped up again.
They got poor Elway out the.
Elway gonna be throwing from the wheelchair probably. I don't know.
Look, I saw Tebow was trending on Twitter, so they probably talking about him.
Tebow, he beat the Steelers in the playoff game. People still talk about it. And Tim Tebow, I do not have anything against Tim Tebow. He was actually one of my favorite players in college. He did everything that he said he was going to do. I mean, you couldn't really stop the man in college. And he got to the NFL, and people really doubted him as a quarterback. You should be a tight end and stuff like that. Can't make the throws. And he ended up beating the Steelers in the playoffs. So people hold that one against him. I was like, man, that's tough, man. He could be anybody else. He beat the Steelers.
So what do you think Denver does? Do you think it's a running back that's going to do it, or wide receiver, punter?
They mentioned like some no name right that I had never heard of, some guy I've never heard of. All I know he's number 2.
Number 2.
Number 2. They mentioned Royce Freeman playing quarterback.
Wow.
One of the backup running back.
Yeah.
They mentioned Jared Judy, their rookie receiver, their premier receiver, running quarterback, and even Von Miller, who had an injury and was, taken out for the season, and he also had COVID. And Von Miller was like, "Hey, I think it's my time. I think it's my time. I am not gonna lie. We not trying to see a 280-pound linebacker throw passes." Hey, I don't know if that's
the thing I can remember from my days of playing high school. I think they're going to be running the ball a lot that game.
Exactly.
Yes.
A lot of handoffs, man. We all could go hand the ball off. I might give you one good pass. After that, that's it.
Hey, you can always do an option lob, but you can always do that real quick.
Yeah, you could. So that's what we're looking at. And with that whole list, like, again, as I said before, this is one of those weeks you'll look at and be like, man, this probably was not a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
As far as playing COVID and risking it. You have shouts out to the players who, decided to not play for their teams as hard as it was and actually sit this season out due to COVID. They were more worried about their families and stuff, and can't knock that for them. So, but the rest of them that are out there that are putting their lives online, risking COVID to give people a show, and it's just a tough week.
It is. So one of the things, just before we go into break here, I do think it's interesting how they keep having to shuffle the games around, particularly in the NFL. Right. Because they had to move the Cowboys. I think it was the Cowboys-Ravens game. They had to get moved. That was on Thursday night. Yeah. And so I feel like they're getting to the point, and this is something people may not know, but the NFL, I think, has a plan. Like if the teams don't finish the season in some kind of way, that they'll add like an 8th playoff spot. Mm-hmm. Like they already have an extra one this year, but they might add another one because some teams may not be able to get to 16 games because of COVID. And at the rate that we're going, you got 16 players on the Ravens who are on the COVID list. I mean, you got 8 on the Steelers, so it's definitely getting worse.
Yep. That's another thing. It's kind of bad for the Steelers because they're holding that. I already hold the Steelers. They're scared. They hold the Steelers schedule against them, saying that they didn't, have a lot of tough teams on the schedule. Now you're playing a depleted Ravens team. So it's stuff like that. Games. that keep getting moved around because of COVID just happening. It's tough. It's really tough.
Yeah, I think it just goes to show, just like how we kind of rushed to get schools open up, and that kind of was a little disastrous. Kind of just shows how we rushed to get America's favorite pastime, sports, back up. That's a little rushed it because you got to make sure that with most of our sports they're contact. So even with you can't really social distance while playing football.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. And there was a claim. Something came out before saying that. People compared the NFL. There was a joke saying that Adam Silver is doing everything right and Roger Goodell is doing everything wrong. Because the NBA had a plan. They put their bubble into play. You see how that actually had success recently. I believe they wanted to have a bubble for the NFL. I don't know how they would do it if they would just go to one stadium.
Yeah, that's hard.
There. That would be really weird and really different because they have a lot more players than NBA teams. I think most people were up for it. I believe the players were the ones that were against it. So I don't know what that tells you. I mean,
well, I mean, they're not gonna. I know one thing: they're not gonna forfeit any games. I think if they forfeit, the players don't get paid. So I don't. I don't foresee. Even like you say, people were talking about the Broncos might forfeit, but that ain't happening. They're gonna go out there with a running back, wide receiver, somebody's going to play quarterback, and they're going to play the game to try to win, but they also want to get paid too, because if they don't play, they won't get paid. So, so that wasn't that hard. See, that was easy. See, that came out.
We went to school together. We both took a couple broad classes together. I guess I can say I learned something.
If Teresa's watching, you put the skills there. So we appreciate it.
You don't use them, you lose them. So
exactly, we appreciate it. Hopefully, this will be a regular thing. Like I say, you'll be our sports insider, so we can have you on when stuff is going on and kind of explain to the folks what's happening in the sports world. So again, in case y'all don't know, we are all brothers of KK Psi. Honorary band fraternity. So if you don't know, you do know now. We all were in the same line. So, and Mississippi State as well. So we're all Bulldogs. For those folks out there who don't know us. So again, it's our friend, frat brother, sports insider now, Mr. Thad Fairley. We appreciate you joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys. I want to say Hell State, even though we lost the Egg Bowl, and now I got to figure out if I'm gonna change my name to Thad Schefter, Thad Wojnarowski.
Hey, let us know so we can fix your name on here.
So thanks for having me, guys.
All right, Schefter, we appreciate it. Cool. All right, we'll see y'all after the break. Stick with us.
And I was going to say before we let you go, viewers, I wanted to make sure that we highlight that this Saturday is actually Small Business Saturday. We saw VP-elect Kamala Harris out shopping with a lot of entrepreneurs in DC, and I just wanted to make sure to encourage everybody. Instead of shopping on Amazons and going to Macy's and all that, check out some of your small businesses during the holiday season, because they're struggling right now during this pandemic, and a lot of them are failing. You don't see Walmart, putting out any statements about them closing down, but you do see a lot of your mom and pop shops who are struggling right now. So when you get ready to buy your gifts for your family members this year, consider doing local gifts. Consider shopping with small businesses. So with that being said, we'll see you on the other side.
All right, welcome back, viewers. So we wanted to talk about some international news, and so we want to start with some big news, really, out of Iran as we get ready for the Joe Biden administration. And so we got some news yesterday, last night actually, that it looks like Iran's top nuclear scientist. His name was I don't see it here. Mohsen Fakhrizadeh. I said that terribly. I'm sorry, but it looks like Mr. Mohsen was killed in Iran on Friday night, and so far they're saying that this may be linked to Israel. They're calling this an assassination in Iran, and so Adrian, this is huge news because we know that the Biden administration was probably looking at rejoining the Iran nuclear deal because the Trump administration had left, and so here you see, like you say, maybe 60 days before a Joe Biden administration takes over, you see their top nuclear scientists being assassinated. And people are already linking this to Israel, which we are, if you don't know, Israel and Iran have a feud going on where essentially in the past, Iran has threatened violence against Israel, and Israel has always been staunchly opposed to Iran. And so they see them as a deadly threat, and they don't want them to get their hands on nuclear weapons. And so, Adrian, I don't know if it's true that it's Israel, but if it is Israel, this is a huge escalation in this relationship between these two countries. And I'm not sure where it leaves a Joe Biden administration and maybe looking at, rejoining the nuclear deal, trying to, coming in January.
I think it's messy, to say the least. Yes. It's going to be messy because you think about the fact that, we took out Soleimani, one of their, top generals, earlier this year. You referenced a nuclear deal. I mean, that's a big deal, a big thing here. And you got the fact that when you think that Israel is kind of the culprit, well, the United States has taken a position to get cozier to Israel and recognize them more so than some other world stages. So I definitely think it's going to lead to a really messy situation for the Biden-Harris ticket, or administration rather, because you already got the president of Iran has already come out and said, revenge is kind of on the menu for the country. Because this scientist, it was basically, he was kind of their leader in the nuclear program, but he pretty much promised revenge, and he promised to continue the work of the fallen scientists, which probably is going to, stir some feathers amongst world leaders, because this was one of the things, Devin, that we were trying to calm. We were kind of calm a lot of the tension with nuclear arms. That was the whole purpose of having the nuclear deal with Iran, that we kind of gotten out of. So, if anything, Devin, I think it's just going to show for President Biden that this is going to be an area that he's going to have to make a part of his 100 days. He's going to have to come and hit the ground running with trying to figure out how to de-escalate the tension in this area and get back into some sort of agreement on nuclear arms.
Yeah, it certainly makes it much more difficult. And it complicates the relationship between us and Israel, particularly if Israel and Iran do get into some kind of conflict here. Like, whose side are we on? Obviously, we don't want either one to be fighting one another, but I would assume that we would stand behind Israel. But at the same time, we were trying to keep Iran engaged because we don't want them, we want them to use nuclear power, the nuclear power that they have, for other things other than trying to create a bomb and a weapon, because a lot of people do look to Iran as a sponsor of terrorism still. And so that notion is there. So Israel seems to be acting on its own here, in doing this, if it is indeed them. And this would not be the first time. If some people may remember Stuxnet, the virus that came out some years ago, that was reportedly because Israel went ahead and changed the code of a virus that the United States and Israel had already created. And they changed the code in this virus and made it much worse and much more aggressive. And they were doing this so that they could tamper with the Iran nuclear program. And so when they did that, this virus actually got out into the public and was starting to spread from computer to computer. And so we've seen this before. Israel go ahead and try to do things on its own. You just hope that when they say revenge, they don't mean it literally, and that we're going to see some type of real escalation between these two countries. So we'll definitely be bringing you more updates to that as we get it, and certainly as we get into a Joe Biden administration, we're going to hope that these things kind of calm down and simmer down a little bit. But we do want to come back stateside a little bit and go to the state of Alabama. And this is really just an example of how COVID-19 has really upended everything that we know. And this is regarding really public schools. So right now, the state of Alabama is saying that they have more than 5,000 public school students in Alabama that have not shown up to any form of learning, in-person, virtual, you name it. They're missing about 5,000 students who have not showed up to any of that. And so what this really means is that this could mean further difficulties for those students that didn't get a chance to learn virtually or in person. And it's going to make it very hard for them to catch up in a state that already has, problems with its educational standing and its education system. And so with lower enrollment numbers, this also could mean a drop in the number of teachers and staff because you don't have as many students. And each student, there's money attached to them for attending school. And so, Adrian, this could spell, some real budget problems on the horizon. This could mean real budget problems on the horizon for districts. And so it's interesting. They did have some reasons why they think the students may not be at school, but it's still interesting to see the 5,000 kids not showing up at all for any type of learning with the Alabama public school system.
And, I feel, Devin, that this is probably not the only state that's probably suffering this. It's probably maybe the only state that's having some major reporting on it. But I would imagine, from California to New York to Florida to Washington, there are a number of families who are choosing to not engage in public school, whether it be by choice or whether it be not by choice because maybe they don't even have technology or internet at home. But I'm hopeful that this is going to be an issue that we tackle. I saw a documentary, Harlem Rising, where they're talking about what they're doing in Harlem to help with minority communities. Because kids who are already behind the eight ball in terms of educational abilities, this pandemic has really hurt them. And it's going to take years and years to get them to a level of normal. We're just talking about normal, just to get them back to the play. I really hope that we as a country start to do something to kind of tackle this and make it more of a pillar. This little last nugget, viewer, before we go into our quick hits, we kind of wanted to do a little bit of our own, I guess, journalism and our own little bit of reporting here. This is really a story that you can go reference other than the Black Agenda podcast or Devin and Adrian. But one of the things that we just kind of wanted to talk about was just the media's role. And what we've realized is that they've kind of stopped paying attention to Donald Trump and started cutting him off essentially. And we just kind of wanted to talk about this just because we ourselves, we consider ourselves media personalities. We consider ourselves that we have a role to play in making sure that the general public kind of understands what's going on. And when you understand Donald Trump, you realize, Devin, that it's been documented that he's probably the most untruthful person that we've ever had in the presidency. He's broken many norms. He's really stirred so much chaos and violence in our country. But yet the media just paid so much attention to everything. Even though they kept saying that day after day, we're not even surprised anymore. They kept just feeding into all this mayhem and all this mischief. But now all of a sudden, Devin, they're not even talking about him. Now all of a sudden they're cutting him off. They're fact checking him. And viewers, the main reason why we're going over this is again, to just show the power that we have as media personalities and as individuals when we share media content to kind of validate some of these things, because had the media done all of these things, like, cut Trump off, maybe show people that, you should wear a mask, if the media does take extra precautions to ensure that they're educating the public, maybe we wouldn't be in some of these messes that we're going through right now, Devin.
No, I think we'd be in a very different place had the media treated Donald Trump the way they're treating him right now, if they had treated him like that in, say, 2015, 2016, when he was running for president. Donald Trump didn't just start lying in 2020 or after he became president. It got worse, but we already knew in 2015 and 2016, bless you, that he was that that he was.
Myself. It's involuntary.
You tried it. You did. You tried it. But yeah, I think for me it's like it is possible for the media to get off of Donald Trump and talk about something else. So they are capable. I think what's happened is that the incentive is no longer there, because he's not the president anymore. And so you don't have to put him on camera.
He's more of a lame duck.
Well, he's a lame duck president right now, but they know he's not going to be there come January. So now they feel like, okay, you lost. We don't have to cover him like we used to. We remember the 2016 election. CNN had hours of an empty podium waiting for Donald Trump to come up and speak. That was free media. Like, the man literally did not have to pay for TV spots because he was getting so much free media attention. And we've never seen anything like that before. And they didn't treat him seriously, so they weren't fact-checking him like they are now. And they were just worried about how many viewers can we get to watch it, because they knew he would say all this crazy stuff. And he drew eyeballs to the television, which equals dollars for them as far as advertisers. And so I think, the national media, not really, when you say the media, we don't mean local TV stations. We're talking CNN, Fox, MSNBC, ABC, all the big stations, CBS. Those stations are who we're talking about, because they, in a way, have been complicit in creating the monster that is Donald Trump. They gave him all the media coverage he could ever want in 2016. Then he turned on them and called them fake news. And they became more of adversaries. And then the media became so anti-Trump that they started messing up things that he was saying, and flip-flopping comments that he was saying and taking them out of proportion sometimes. I'm not defending Donald Trump, but the media has been not on it, and definitely much more sensationalist with with the headlines. If you turn on CNN, 90% of the time you're going to see a breaking news thing pop up at the bottom. Like, it's literally impossible to have so much breaking news that 23 hours out of the 24, that's all you're showing. Like, I get it, you want people to watch, but my goodness. So hopefully, a boring Joe Biden presidency will force the national media really to change the way that they do things, to try to get people's attention by actually telling real stories or doing real investigative pieces, and not just, we hate Donald Trump, here's the lies that Donald Trump said today, because that's what we got for 4 years. So hopefully this is a moment for them to say, all right, we maybe need to do things a little differently, to go forward, because they're going to see a drop off in viewers anyway. So we already know that's coming.
Yeah, it's Devin. It's absolutely clear. It's the media had so much power in perpetuating these falsehoods and playing into these shenanigans. Had they just took away the focus of Donald Trump and all these falsehoods, then you wouldn't have all these stories just being all these conspiracy theories and all these different things being retweeted and reshared. Yeah. So I hope that going forward, all of our media from national, state, and local, they realize that they actually have a voice, and that they realize that they have a mission to make sure that facts matter. Because I think going forward into 2021, that's going to be so important to make sure that what you're reporting on is factual, it's credible, people can verify it. It's not some allegation that doesn't have any proof or whatever. That's going to be so important going forward, because you're going to have, regardless of whether or not Donald Trump is a contender for president in 2024, or in jail, or running a news network, you're going to have a lot of his influence still, and the only way to fight that is with facts, education, and then of course unity. So before we take our last little break here, one thing that we wanted to acknowledge, just because we are the Black Agenda, the passing away of the first Black mayor of New York City, David Dinkins. We wanted to make sure to recognize that. We got some confirmation this week that he had passed away. I don't recall how old he was. We didn't make that in our notes here, but hats off to him and his family. Think of him, keeping his loved ones in our prayers. And viewers, we just wanted to make sure that you know that, do the same. And then with that being said, we'll go ahead and take our last little break here before we get into our quick hits. So we'll take our break and we'll see you on the other side.
All right, viewers. So as always, we're going to leave you with some quick hits, which is some news that you may have heard about or you may not have heard about from this past week. And so our first quick hit is going to come out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, where the city of Tulsa is actually willing to pay people $10,000 to move there and live there for a year. And so this program is actually called Tulsa Remote. And so, like I say, it'll pay workers $10,000, and you move to the city of Tulsa, and you have to stay for at least a year. And the only requirements to participate in this program is you must be a full-time remote worker, or you must be self-employed outside of the state of Oklahoma, and you have to be eligible to work in the United States. You also must be older than 18 and be able to move to Tulsa within 6 months. And once you're accepted, like I say, you have to be there for a year. And so, Adrian, this actually doesn't sound like a bad deal. You do get more than just cash, too. You also get a free workspace. You get a housing specials on certain apartments. And you also get opportunities for community hangouts and meetups. And so far, this program has accepted about 400 people. And right now, about 97% of them have stayed after their year is up, with only 3 people moving out of the city of Tulsa after their 1 year. So if you're a remote worker, working full time, maybe look at Tulsa, Oklahoma. They'll pay you $10K to move there if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, if you're struggling during the pandemic, I mean, it's not a bad gig right there. If you want to work remotely in Tulsa, it's not bad. Just to bring you a little, I guess, more international news, I guess, our neighbors up north, our Canadian officials put out some important messaging reading, "Do not let moose lick your car." Dan, when I saw this story, I just had to talk, and I wanted to include it because it's not something you really see in America. I don't think we really have very many moose here, unless you maybe in New York or something, maybe Washington. But apparently, a lot of moose take to the streets to lick ongoing cars because there's salt, and there's salt on the cars that their bodies need. And National Park Service has just been telling people, don't do this because this is a hazard to the animals and the people. Because you think about it, Devin, if the moose are doing this, it becomes a habit and it normalizes that behavior, and you might have an increase in possible collisions, resulting in more injury and damages for people. So they just put out the best thing to do, best way to avoid this is simply just drive away. Devin, if you see a moose approaching you, just drive away. Don't get out the vehicle. Don't let them lick your car. Just get out of there and keep the population going.
Yes, give me 1 second here. So we're having a technical difficulty. Our cameras are off.
Okay.
So give me 1 second to fix it. You can move on if you want to do the next one. The next quick hit there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, hey, Cyber Monday is set to be November 30th. So we got this upcoming Monday. And the thing is, many deals are already active, live, and ready to go. That's the one thing about the pandemic that's happening for this year for us viewers. A lot of deals, even for Black Friday. I mean, I know that was yesterday, but a lot of those deals were running month long. You got Amazon, definitely they're going to be in on the Cyber Monday deals. You get it fixed, Devin?
Yeah, I got it fixed here.
Okay, yeah. Cool. Go ahead. I'll let you take it.
So Cyber Monday, if you're a big online shopper, which most of us are now because of the pandemic, I know I've bought a few things online. I actually did go to the store too, so I kind of did both. But if you're looking for some Cyber Monday deals, Amazon's Cyber Monday deals are already live. They started, I think, today. And so we'll give you a rundown, at least a little bit of some things you can get from them if you care about Amazon stuff like that. So the first one is an Amazon Echo Show number 5. Amazon Echo Show 5. You can grab that for about $40 right now. That's a savings of $40, so that's a pretty good deal. You can also get you a Amazon Fire HD tablet. It's a 10-inch tablet, 1080p, full HD display with 32 gigs of storage. You can grab that for $80 right now on Amazon. You can also get an Amazon Echo Show 8, which is an HD 8-inch smart display with Alexa. You can grab that for $65. And then the last one here, for folks who have Ring, I've heard a lot of people have this, and I've seen it before, but you can grab a Ring Video Doorbell 3 Plus. So it has 1080p HD video, advanced motion detection, you get 4-second previews, and of course, easy installation. And it comes with a 30-day free trial of Ring Protect plan. And you can grab a Ring Doorbell for $160, and it's $70 off right now for Cyber Monday. So if you're looking for any of that kind of techie stuff, those deals are live right now on Amazon.
I know, and it's good that they're extending it for like a little a period of time, because payday for me is next week. So hopefully those deals will be going into the next week. Hey, a little bit of African American news here. An African American making history in the Catholic Church. So according to The Guardian, among 13 cardinals that Pope Francis has elevated to the Catholic hierarchy, one of them is 72-year-old Wynton Gregory, who is the first African American to be elevated to the College of Cardinals. Gregory is also the highest ranking African American Catholic in the United States. I think he put out a message saying he looks forward to working with President Biden and upcoming years. Gregory made headlines over the summer when he criticized Donald Trump for visiting the shrine of Pope St. Paul II. So really, really great to see that. I mean, I think we talked about some firsts whenever Biden did his cabinet pick. So we even had some firsts in religion with African Americans finally getting up to the status of becoming a cardinal.
Yeah, still a lot of firsts happening.
Always rooting for first.
Definitely. So our next quick hit is going to come out of Washington, D.C., and it involves the Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin. For those of you who keep up with what's happening on Capitol Hill, Treasury Secretary Mnuchin did put $455 billion in unspent CARES Act money. He put that into an account within the Treasury Department that's going to make it a little bit harder for the next administration to get their hands on. And so essentially what he did is he put this money into what they call the agency's general fund, which a Treasury spokesperson confirmed that on Tuesday. And so most of this money was being used to support the Federal Reserve's emergency lending facilities. And with him moving this money into their general account, Janet Yellen, who's going to be the incoming Secretary of the Treasury, is going to have a hard time getting it without congressional approval. So she's really going to need congressional approval to use this money. And so this move, moving this $455 billion into their general fund, leaves about $80 billion in the Treasury's what they call Exchange Stabilization Fund. Fancy word for saying money that they can send out to businesses to help, with whatever's happening. And that can be done at the discretion of the Treasury chief. So it's a little bit easier to use that money. Mnuchin just made it a lot harder to get their hands on the $455 billion. And he has received criticism, of course, from Democrats who see this as a move to move money away from the incoming administration to make it harder for them to kind of hit the ground running when it comes to coronavirus stimulus and more aid to businesses.
That's just silly, Devin. For an administration to be that petty, to be outgoing and to move money to make it more difficult for the incoming administration to help Americans. Very, very petty. But viewers, we didn't want to end you with such a petty story. I don't know how you look at this. This could be interesting, maybe a little petty, I guess, depending on which lawmaker you are. But this is out of Taiwan. There was a fight that broke out amongst their lawmakers, and the scuffle kind of happened around the regulations of U.S. pork and U.S. pork imports. So for viewers you don't know this, the United States pork is I guess not the best pork. There's a lot of countries that ban our pork, like China, and even the EU actually bans our pork because of a certain additive in there. So I believe there was a group of leaders who wanted to ease regulations with imports for U.S. pork. And then there was another group who did not want to do it, the opposition party. So the opposition party decided to throw pig guts at the ruling party, who was in favor of easing regulations. So they were, throwing pig guts in Parliament to kind of disrupt the flow of business. And of course, the ruling party condemned the protest, calling it disgusting. Also called it a waste of food that stank up Parliament. And they would, hope to get to rational debates again. So sounds about like our government here in America. Yeah. A lot of mudslinging is what we call it, but it might as well be throwing pig intestines as well. So that's our last little quick hit for you viewers.
Yeah, I can imagine what that smells like. Up in there. Yeah, we did. Boy, oh boy. Ooh, I wouldn't want to be up in there. But yeah, so that's it for our show here, viewers. We appreciate you sticking with us. It's really a slow news week, so we try to find some things that were interesting for you. And of course, we always like to leave you with what's coming up next for us as far as the podcast is concerned. So we do have some things for you to look out for. So first off, on December 1st, which is Tuesday, we will have a new podcast episode, and this was going to be about financial literacy. So really trying to get people, prepared for the holiday shopping season. It is here, is it upon us, and we all spend a lot of money. Sometimes we spend money we don't have. I'm guilty of doing such things. So our resident economist here, or financier, banker, money manager, Adrian here, is going to give us some tips and some things that we can kind of do to manage our money a little bit better around the holidays. That way we end up, coming in January looking a little bit better financially. And so that episode, Financial Literacy, is coming up next Tuesday on December 1st. And then our next one after that is going to be on December 8th. We'll be speaking with a banker to discuss the importance of having a relationship with the bank, and then also the benefits of home ownership. So you see a theme here. This is finances. This is what we're trying to hit as we get towards the end of this year to get everybody set up, to start 2021 on a really, really good foot financially. And so we'll have that on December 8th, which is the following Tuesday. And then our next episode, our last episode actually for 2021, is going to be on December 15th. And that's going to be an interview with a motivational speaker, author, and marketing trainer. His name is Mr. Maurice W. Evans. And he's going to give us some insight into what it takes to be productive into 2021. In particular, we'll try to help you, with those New Year's resolutions that we all struggle with. And, we make them and then we don't stick with them. So we're going to have Maurice on the show to help us, get ready for 2021. So that, of course, as the economy comes back, you'll be ready financially, spiritually, emotionally, whatever. You're going to be ready for 2021 to be a really, really great year. So we got some things coming. So make sure you look out for those on the podcast.
Yeah, definitely, viewers. Make sure you watch out for or listen for those, because we wanted our last month of episodes to really be something positive and uplifting, because 2020 has been such a chaotic year and depressing for everybody. So we wanted to make sure to end on a good note. And as always, viewers, remember this. The podcast, our live shows. This isn't this isn't where we want things to stop. The main fight is really about us getting more official and actually going beyond our podcast and beyond our video streaming and actually establishing a nonprofit organization. So that's why we always talk to you about donating. We're looking to actually champion and voice true change in communities and around the country. So we wanted to make sure you can go to Patreon, which is patron.podbean, podbean.com/Black Agenda Pod. I think we've got a little heading on there so you can see that, but that's patron.podbean.com/Black Agenda Pod. We would love for you to become patrons of us, love for you to be follower of us, so that you can go on with our mission. Because like I said, we're going to do this. It's only a matter of time, but we would love to be able to do it sooner, and we'll need your help to make that happen.
Definitely. And for the folks who are watching, I managed to get up our webpage there so you can see it. Up in the top right corner or top left corner, you can see the web address up there, https patreon.podbean.com//Black Agenda Pod. You see it right there. It allows you to help us out a little bit. We don't have any patrons at the moment, but you can give us whatever you want. It could be $1, $5, $10. It goes up to $100, and you just put it in there right there. Click that green button that says "Become a Patron," and we have a little bit of our story of why why we're doing this podcast and why we need a little financial help. Of course, these things are not free. We do pay for everything that we do. So if you're willing to give, we're willing to accept the help, of course, and we're trying to do some things to get some good going in our community. So we would definitely appreciate you helping us out with that. And so that's it. That is the show. As always, we tell you to follow us. You see it right there at the bottom. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Black Agenda Pod. Share everything that you see. Share this video here. Share with your friends and family. Make them watch. Sit them down. Make them watch. I know it's hard. And then, of course, you can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to your music. You can find us. Just search for The Black Agenda and start on episode 1 and go from there. So with that, that's going to do it for the Black Agenda Podcast, the weekly roundup number 16. We'll catch you guys next Saturday at 7:30 p.m. right here on Facebook and YouTube. So we appreciate you watching, and we'll catch you next time.